Hi guys, so here's your lesson for Wednesday, May 27th, and the good news is that we're almost done with this unit. There's 10 lessons in this unit, and we're on lesson 6, and after this unit we will be done for the rest of the school year. So you have 5 more lessons including this one until the end. Okay, so today we're going to talk about quadratics from a table. Okay, so just to review, let's look at the different pieces of our parabola again, okay? So the first piece here, we have where it crosses the x-axis, we call them the roots, or the solutions, or the zeros. 3 different names for one thing, okay? This dotted line here, okay, remember we call this the axis of symmetry. And the very bottom or the very top point, depending on which way the parabola is going, is called the vertex. Okay? And one more review question. Without looking at a graph, so do not use GeoGebra, what are the roots of the equation? And remember, the roots, okay, are where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, so we're going to do that without looking at a graph, simply by factoring. So we're going to take this and we're going to factor it. Okay, remember, trinomial. Okay, 3 terms, we use the AC factoring method. So my A equals 1, my B is 6, and my C is negative 16. I multiply A times C. 1 times negative 16 gives me negative 16. Because AC is negative, we know that the signs are different. So I'm going to put that in right now. Okay? My B is 6, positive 6. So because the signs are different, the B is positive, so we know the bigger number is the positive one. I'm going to put big here so we know where to put that. Okay, then I take my first term, my x squared, and I know that x squared is the same thing as x times x. So I'm going to put that in. I take my AC, which is 16, and I list out the factors. I have 1, 16, 2, and 8, and 4, and 4. And one more time, if you don't know the factors of 16, you can type into GeoGebra 16 divided by x and look at the table of values. Okay? Now, signs are different. I have positive and negative. So I know that I'm looking for a difference. When the signs are different, means difference of whatever my B is, 6. So which pair here gives me a difference of 6 when we subtract them? 16 minus 1, that's 15. 8 minus 2, that's 6. So I take the bigger number and I put it where I put big. I take the smaller number and I put it in the last missing spot. Now, in order to figure out what the actual roots are, this is the additional step, I have to set them both equal to 0. So, x plus 8 equals 0. Okay, now I solve for x. To get x by itself, I subtract 8 from both sides. My 8's cancel, and I'm left with x equals negative 8. That's one root. My next root, I do the same thing. I take it and I set it equal to 0, and I solve for x. Okay, to get x by itself, I add 2, and I'm left with x equals 2. That's my other root. Okay, so again, finding the roots without having an actual graph in front of you to see it, you can do it algebraically. And we're going to need something like this for what we're learning today. Okay, so when we have a table, okay, writing equations from a table, what we're going to do today is we're going to actually take points from a table and make a quadratic equation from it. Okay, so it says, given the following table of values, write the equation of the quadratic function. So we're going to end up with something that looks just like this. That's basically what it's asking. Okay, so using the values from the table, we're going to write that quadratic equation. So part A says, what are the roots? Okay, well, thankfully this one does give us a graph. Okay, remember the roots are where the graph crosses the x-axis. This is the x-axis. Okay, and we could tell just based on looking at the graph that the roots are x equals -4 and x equals 2. Okay, but what if I didn't have the graph? Okay, what if I didn't have this entire graph here? Let's get rid of this for a second. I already know that the roots are x is -4 and 2. If I look at my table, x is -4 is right there, and x equals 2 is right there. What do they have in common? Okay, well, if we didn't have a graph and we just had the table, we can find the roots by circling the points where y equals 0. Okay, notice they both have a 0 in the y spot. So it's the points where y equals 0. So we find y equals 0 and we take the x values, that -4 and that +2 as our roots. Part B says, how can we use the roots to work backwards and write an equation? So what we're going to do, the reason why we did this review problem is we're going to take the roots, we're going to start from this point here and take the roots and work backwards and write an equation. Okay, so I have -4 and +2. I'm going to write that out. X equals -4 and x equals 2. Okay, I'm gonna work backwards by setting them both equal to 0. Okay, so I want to bring the 4. Let's start with this one. I'm bringing the 4 over to the side of x. So I add 4 to both sides. Okay, my 4's cancel out. I'm left with 0 on this side. On the other side, I have x plus 4. Okay, that's one piece. I'm going to say x plus 4 here. Now I need the other piece. Okay, do the same thing. We're going to bring 2 to the other side and set it equal to 0. So I -2, -2. My 2's cancel out, and I'm left with 0. And I have x minus 2 on this side. That's my other piece. Now all we have to do is multiply, okay? So I have x times x gives me x squared. X times -2 gives me -2x. 4 times x gives me 4x. And 4 times -2 gives me -8. Simplify by combining your like terms. I have -2x and +4x. So I have x squared. -2x and +4x gives me +2x minus 8. So really, we just wrote the equation here. Here is my quadratic equation. And this quadratic equation is the equation for this graph. If you go to type this into GeoGebra, f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 8, you're going to get this exact same graph. We just worked backwards to write the graph. Let's try another one. So, given the following table of values, write the equation of the quadratic function. Okay? Well, this one doesn't give me a graph. And it says, what are the roots? Remember, I'm going to look at my y column, and I'm going to circle all the zeros. So here's a 0, so I'm going to circle this pair, and here's a 0. I'm going to circle this pair. That tells me the roots are x equals 1 and x equals 3. I'm just using these right here. Part B. Use the roots to write the equation of the quadratic function. Okay, same thing as before. I take my x equals 1 and my x equals 3, and I work backwards. Okay, so I subtract 1, my 1's cancel. I'm left with 0 equals x minus 1. I can't combine those, so I write it out. Here's one piece. Same thing. Do the opposite. -3, -3. My 3's cancel out. I'm left with 0 equals x minus 3. There's my other piece. Now I multiply. X squared X times negative 3 is negative 3x. Negative 1 times x gives me negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 3 gives me positive 3. Combine your like terms. I have negative 3x and negative 1x gives me negative 4x. Okay, bring down my positive 3, bring down my x squared, and there's your equation. F of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. Okay, this is the equation, the quadratic equation for that table. One more practice problem and then we're done for today. So, given the following table of values, write the equation of the quadratic function. Okay, what are the roots? Well, again, I look in my y column and I see 0 and 0, so I'm going to circle those. And I use the x values. So x equals 4 and x equals 6. Use the roots to write the equation of the quadratic function. So I have x equals 4, so I work backwards. Minus 4. Sorry, hold on one second, guys. Can you guys shut the door up there, please?
Yes, sorry.
I apologize. It's my husband. I have minus 4, minus 4. 4's cancel out. I'm left with 0 equals x minus 4. Okay, that's one piece. Now let's do the other one. Let's use our 6. X equals 6. Okay, I do the opposite. Positive 6, I subtract. Subtract. My 6's cancel. I'm left with 0 equals x minus 6. So there's my other piece. Now I multiply. I have x times x gives me x squared. X times negative 6 gives me negative 6x. Negative 4 times x gives me negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 6 gives me negative 24. Combine your like terms. Negative 6x and negative 4x gives me negative 10x. Bring down your x squared. Bring down your minus 24. There's your equation. So you can put f of x equals x squared minus 10x minus 24. This is your quadratic equation for this table of values. Okay, so really, guys, it's nothing new. It's just working backwards from what we had been doing before. Okay, so please take a look at the assignment for today. It's going to be a problem just like this. Let me know if you have questions. Good luck.